and welcome back to another episode of B2B, Breakfast to Business, where we talk shop, we talk life, we talk advocacy, and we talk real. This is your morning girl, Bea Lim, also the Managing Director of Team Asia, bringing you another fresh and hot topic in today's special episode. Now, this special episode, ladies and gentlemen, is in partnership with the IMMAP, which is the Internet Mobile Marketing Association of the Philippines, and Investing in Women, an Australian government initiative. Now, the IMMAP has a really cool program called the Breakfast Roundtable, which is a unique opportunity to get up close and personal with some of the country's leading digital marketers. Now, the BRT houses fireside chats with these digital experts, and 10 lucky attendees or members of the IMMAP get to ask them questions on the hot topic of the day. And last June, we had an absolutely amazing and empowering breakfast roundtable that did a deep dive into gender equality at work and how it manifests in the work we do as movers and shakers in this digital creative industry. Now, I was very lucky, super honored to have moderated that discussion, and that is why we are bringing this conversation further into the B2B platform. And we want you, our listeners, to hear what we had to talk about. Now, back to the topic. There is a clear business case for gender equality in campaigns. Research suggests that progressive gender portrayals can actually increase brand equity and have an impact on sales. Now, as the industry endeavors to improve gender portrayals in campaigns and challenge tired stereotypes, the tendency is to look into the work itself. So we ask ourselves, first, to what extent is the creative work driven by the composition of the team? Can gender equality within creative workplaces help improve gender equality in campaigns? And what are the best practices for achieving workplace gender equality within creative workplaces? And we are bringing all of these questions and more here at B2B Breakfast to Business. Sit tight, grab your pens, and take notes. I'm telling you, there will be a lot of food for thought. There will be a lot of insights, a lot of recommendations that you can actually drive in your organizations and in your campaigns. So buckle up and let's have this enriching and engaging conversation with three amazing, inspiring, and just really power people in the industry here at B2B Breakfast to Business. Hats off to our speakers, Kim Patria of Investing in Women, Anna Chua Norbert of DDB Philippines, and Melay Lopez of Google Philippines. Here we go. Today, we talk about gender equality at work and how it manifests in the work that we do, because we are the movers and shakers of the digital industry. Don't you guys agree? Show me some love on the chat box or the emojis. And because we have such an important job ahead of us and passionate about the work that we do, we want to talk about this because it is an important discussion point. There is a clear business case for gender equality in campaigns, and research suggests actually that progressive gender portrayals can increase brand equity and have an impact on sales. And as the industry endeavors really to improve gender portrayals in campaigns and challenge the tired stereotypes, the tendency is to look at the work itself. So we're here today to ask ourselves, to what extent in the creative work driven by the composition of the teams, can gender equality within creative workplaces help improve gender equality in campaigns? And what are the best practices for achieving workplace gender equality in creative workplaces? Very interesting questions indeed. And we have three absolutely amazing trailblazers and individuals who are pushing the gender equality agenda forward with us here at BRT today. And it is my absolute honor to be introducing them to you. And I'd like to start off with Anna. Hi, Anna. Anna Chua Norbert is the Group Chief Culture Officer of DDB Group Philippines, one of the country's leading integrated marketing communication groups. And as Culture Chief, Anna takes care of DDB's people through the Culture Hub, which leads the agency's groups, human resources, talent management, and corporate communication units, enabling DDB Group's people-focused management The Culture Hub under Anna's leadership has nurtured and motivated the group's talents to achieve their utmost potential through purposeful training, a culture of holistic health, and a diverse, inclusive workplace. Also, in 2020, Anna became the first ever Filipina to win the Diversity Champion title at the campaign's Asia Pacific Women's Leading Changing Award. So congratulations, Anna, and so glad to have you with us here today. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Bea. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm really happy to share what we do at TTB. Hi,
Thank you, Anna.
Eileen.
Thank you, Anna. Super excited, super excited. And joining Anna on the virtual stage this morning is Melay Lopez. Melay is a program manager in Google Philippines, where she served as lead in the Pride and Trans Employee Resource Groups. Melay is also the current Secretary General of the Society of Trans Women of the Philippines, the pioneer trans advocacy organization in the country. Prior to joining her current employer, Melay worked in the BPO industry for about 15 years, mostly as a project manager. She was born in Cagayan de Oro City, but has been based in Metro Manila after moving to Ateneo de Manila for her college education. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome also to Melay. Morning, Melay.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and share my personal experiences. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Melay. And of course, rounding up the pack of experts we have today, Kim. Kim Patria is the Deputy Director for Gender Norms at Investing in Women, an initiative of the Australian government that promotes women's economic empowerment in Southeast Asia. He seeks out and works with partners in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam for interventions to broaden public support for gender equality. In the Philippines, he leads Investing in Women's partnership with the IMMAP for the Purple Boomerang Awards. Here we go. Let us welcome Kim. Hi, Kim. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Really happy to be here today and looking forward to the exciting conversation.
Yay! I'm super looking forward to this as well. So without further ado, Kim, Anna, Melay, I want you guys to meet our participants for this morning. And they're already turning on their videos. Hi, guys. So excited to have you. All right. I would like to, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on a name. But please introduce yourself to our speakers by sharing your name, your company, and your designation. All right, so here we go. I would like to start off first with Shello. Shello, please go ahead.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Shello. I'm the HR and Admin Associate at Emerge Local. Thank you.
Good morning, Shello. Thanks so much for joining us. How about Joyce? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Joyce from Team Asia. I'm the account planner.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joyce. Now let's move on to Lynn. Good morning, Lynn.
Hey, Bea. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Well, this is my third time, if I remember correctly, a third time to be joining the BRT. Maybe because I've really been just enjoying the conversations and the topic. I really have it getting more and more interesting each time. So happy to be back for the third time.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynn. Happy to have you with us. And I'm really enjoying the engagement with you, Lynn. Excited for today's discussion as well. We have next Michael. Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Ms. Bea, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Michael. I'm the Human Capital Officer of Team On Ground Integrated.
That's awesome. Michael, we're so excited to have you here. We have our participant from Team On Ground. Next up, we have from Attorney Dicky. Attorney Dicky, good morning.
Good morning, Bea. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Dicky from Unilab Inc. I'm an HROD manager.
Hello, Attorney Dicky. Nice to have you with us this morning. All right. Now I would like to call on Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, good morning. I'm Vanessa Julian, HR and People Operations Director of the Molindo Trina Group of Companies. Happy to be here. Good morning.
Good morning and happy to have you with us, Vanessa. It's so good to see you again. All right, next up we have Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Kat from Bullish Launch Agency. I'm the project director. I currently handle mostly HR and PR. Nice
Nice.
to meet
Hi,
everyone.
Kat. Thank you, Kat, for joining us. And then we have Regina. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Regina from
Okay.
education.ph, Senior Partnerships Manager at education.ph.
Nice to have you with us, Regina. Good morning. And we have Eileen.
Hi guys, good morning. My name's Aileen Borromeo. I look after strategy and governance for Chroma Entertainment. Good morning.
Good morning, Eileen. So good to have you. And that, Kim, Melai, and Anna rounds up our participants for this morning's BRT. So we're just going to go ahead and start our conversation here on gender equality. So to start off, as I mentioned to you, we will create a flow for the questions. So we have grouped the questions thematically using our amazing title, Equality Inside Out, right? So the first category is equality, which is really umbrella questions on gender equality. Then we will move to inside, which are the questions that you have posed on gender equality in the workplace. Then we go to outside, which really talks about how gender equality manifests in the work we do. And we have a fourth category because you guys just sent in such interesting questions, the ways forward and how the Philippines can push the gender equality agenda forward. So yes, we will try as much as possible to get through all of our amazing questions. So we are going to bunch up certain questions to our dear participants that have the same theme. I will be calling on you to ask your questions, and then we will proceed to asking our fabulous speakers their answers to your questions. If we're all good to go, can I get a thumbs up? You can give me a thumbs up with your videos, or you can give us a thumbs up on the chat. Are we all good, participants? Yes, let's get it rolling then. So, Anna, Melai, Kim, let's start with equality. And I would like to actually call on the lovely Eileen to start off our discussion. Your first question, Eileen, on equality overall.
Okay, so one of the questions, biglang it's caught on the spot, not enough caffeine. But one of the questions I had was, how else can we practice gender equality given, that we actually have a high number of like female leaders in the workplace compared to other countries. So, I guess that's one of the things that I'm thinking of this morning.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Eileen. So really, in an ideal world, I think that's one also of the questions that you shared, right, Eileen? In an ideal world, what does gender equality look like? And how else can we practice gender equality given the many female leaders that we have? Kim, maybe we can start off with you coming from an investing in women data perspective.
Thanks. So maybe I'll start with how we define, workplace gender equality, and I'll focus a bit on gender equality. For us, there is workplace gender equality when everyone in the workplace, regardless of gender, can access, enjoy opportunities, and thrive at all levels, right? So I think that's the really interesting bit to it, is that we look at all levels of the company, all stages of the employee's pipeline, for example, starting from entry level up to senior management, right? So Eileen, it's really interesting you point out how in the Philippines there's fairly good representation of women leaders, but I think that what's lacking in the Philippines really is also actual measurement of how gender equality is across the organization, right? And even when we say there seems to be good representation of women in leadership, we don't have really good figures around that, you know, or there's varying reports on the female representation across different levels of leadership. So that's what's really important, is looking across the organization. And what I'd point out also is there's sometimes focus on opportunities, but I think we also need to highlight equality in results, right? Because it's one thing to say that anyone in our organization can access opportunities. Well, are people actually accessing it, and are people benefiting from being able to access those opportunities? So
great. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that. I'd like to, of course, call in Anna and Melai on their personal experiences with their organizations, or their, their experience in the industry. I'd like to call on Anna first. Anna, would you like to share also your thoughts on Eileen's questions?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Eileen. Thanks for that. What we found in DDB is that we had to like measure what does equality look like for us. So we had to undergo a tool that was created for this particular thing, which was in partnership with PBCW and Investing in Women. It's called Gears. And we found that not only across the opportunities, but also in equality when it comes to pay. Kasi it's all nice and talk, pero if you don't actually benefit the bottom line of the person, the heck are we doing here? So when we already know that women contribute more to society because the people around them benefit more from them being present, they give more to other people, they're not only nurturers, and this is just across so we have to also look at pay. So that was one thing that I had to make sure that was measured. So
thank you, Anna. That important, very important. And you know what? The equal pay has been actually a theme coming up at our IMMAP event. So this is a good start off point. Thank you so much, Anna. Melai, of course, I'd like to know your experience, right? Your thoughts.
Yeah. Before I go into my own personal thoughts about this, I'd like to just say that I'm glad that both Kim and Anna pointed out that it's important to be able to measure these things, right? In what Eileen has cited in her example, we have a lot of women leaders across organizations in the Philippines, but do we know what percentage of the population of women are actually the lowest paid workers? It is important that we have a lot of women leaders, but it's also important at the same time that we know what percentage of the lowest paid workers are women. If 70 or 80% of them are women, then I think there is something that we need to look more into, right? And there's a lot of other measurements that need to happen there. But for me personally, on that question of in an ideal world, what does gender equality look like? For me, as a trans woman in the workplace, it really has to do with me being able to live my true and most authentic self, bring that self into the office so that I can be my most productive self in my workplace without having to fear discrimination, without having to fear that I'm going to encounter microaggressions. And if I get heard by people, that's always a good thing. And if I voice out that there's no retaliation against me, I think that's going to be, if we are able to meet all those things, I think that would pretty much illustrate what a good workplace would be for a woman at this point. Oh, you're on mute.
I was on mute. Sorry about that. I was just going to say that was so touching, Melai, and I absolutely loved it because just with your thoughts, Kim was able to really go into a macro perspective Anna, you brought in from an organizational perspective what it means, right? And Mela, you just capped it off with what it means as people in the workplace. What do we feel like, right? And how important a holistic, a holistic viewpoint is on that. Eileen, your first question just really started this amazing conversation forward. Thank you so much. I'd like to call on Kat. Kat, you had a really cool question under the equality bucket. Please go on and ask our second question for today.
Okay, sure. Let me just read it. So I asked, what are the most common misconceptions about gender equality and how do we break these stereotypes?
There you go. I love that. What are the most common misconceptions? I'm going to change the format around. I'll go on and call Melai first, right? Melai, what are your quick thoughts on this one?
Okay, the first thought that really comes to mind, at least for me, is that people often associate equality with equality efforts with something that's going to cost companies a lot and that it's going to be expensive for these companies. But that's not entirely true. Providing equal opportunities for everyone and providing equal results, as Kim has pointed out, for everyone, it's not necessarily expensive. And there's a lot of different efforts that companies can put together that would demonstrate their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion that wouldn't cost them a lot of money. For example, if a woman in the workplace complains about harassment from other team members, is she assured that there's not going to be a retaliation against her? I don't think that's going to cost the company a lot of money to make sure that there's a policy in place to make sure that retaliation does not happen, right? And just giving people the understanding around their own personal circumstances. I think that's also an inexpensive and in fact very valuable way of demonstrating one's commitment to DEI. That's really just my first thought around it. It's not an expensive thing to do. A lot of companies can do these things. They just need to commit to it.
About commitment. Love that, Mela. It's not about the expense. It's about the commitment. Anna, your thoughts?
I think what Mela said that cost is very minimal actually. It's more of like training and reskilling your people to think differently. One of the funniest things that I've encountered when it comes to stereotyping is kasi, and then just insert the gender or whatever they're doing. Kasi babae siya. Kasi ganito siya. Kasi ganyan siya. So that's like that's such a Filipino thing, but I found it so funny na ang daming excuses kasi nga ganyan. But then if you really, really want to involve someone, you'll find so many ways to do it. So like what Melay said, there is the commitment to it, but there's also empathy. You need a lot of empathy, and that doesn't require you much, right? To actually be a better person. It just takes a lot of time for us to actually, and patience. But overall, the quality of the people and the quality of the work experience involving so much positivity and light in the environment. As in, there's nothing commensurate for it. It's priceless to have that kind of feeling when you walk in and you're proud to work in that place because they accept everyone, they're welcome, and you feel safe. That's the most important as well.
I love that. Thank you, Anna, for sharing that. The psychological safety, right, that you feel in the workplace because you are accepted. And like what to your point, Melay, about commitment to Anna, it's like there's no excuse, as long as we have empathy and we're able to actually consciously exert our effort for it, then we can provide a psychologically safe environment. Kim, your thoughts on this?
Really good notes from Melay and Anna. But just speaking from my own experience, when we go out and talk about gender equality, in the work that we do, some of the most common misconceptions we encounter are, number one, that gender equality is a women's issue, or it's the problem of the LGBTQI community. No, it involves everyone, right? So, and I'd just like to point out that I'm a bit disappointed that we have only one other man in the room today, right? So, and that's signaling to us that sometimes when we talk about gender equality, people immediately think, oh, let's send a female to this event because this is about women's issues. That shouldn't be the perspective, right? Because it affects everyone. The other common misconception is that it is about empowering women or empowering the LGBTQI community at the expense of cisgender folks or at the expense of men. So, the one common comment among gender equality advocates is it's not pie, right? It's not as if when someone takes a bigger slice of something, you lose something, right? So it is about putting people at the same playing field. And I think the third misconception is, and this is hard to catch sometimes, when we talk about gender equality, lots of organizations say, oh, that's not a problem in our organization because when we hire people, when we promote people, we don't care about gender. That is also risky because that's bordering on gender blindness, right? We need to respond to specific needs of some genders and make sure that we're able to, again, put everyone on equal footing. So it's not about not caring about gender, it's actually looking into the nuances of the workplace that to enable people of all genders to participate meaningfully.
Love that. Thank you so much, Kim. So it's everybody's ball game is what I'm going to say there, right? So we have commitment, training and empathy, and being able to look at it as everybody's ball game. We are all in this together. Thank you so much to our fabulous speakers. Shelo, I am going to end the equality category with your question. Could you please share with everybody your question?
Okay, let me read it. My question for equality theme is, what direction do you believe the Philippines is headed in terms of gender equality in the workplace?
Great, thank you so much. And I don't mean to put you on the spot again, Kim, but you do have the data on this one. I just wanted to quickly check in. Do you guys have a pulse on this direction?
Yeah, thanks, Bea. I think, we hear in the news all the time that the Philippines is one of, the top performing countries in terms of gender equality. So that is good progress, and we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate that we have a fairly good representation of women in leadership, but sometimes that could also lead to complacency, right? And when you look into the hard data, there is still inequality that needs to be addressed, right? So, for example, the female labor force participation in the Philippines is still fairly low compared to men, right? So, in terms of men, I think we're at 80% labor force participation versus 50% of women. So that is that huge gap, right? So again, we're making good progress, but there are also indications that where we're slow in progressing, that could be driven by the norms in our society. The deep-seated perceptions of the gender roles that people need to play. So I think moving forward, we need to look not just into policy. Policy is really important, but we need to look at culture. Right. And I speak to you guys who are working in marketing, comms, advertising. We need to change hearts and minds, really, right? And not just put in place policy. So yeah, I think that's the next step for gender equality in the Philippines, for us to really see good results.
My goodness, Kim, I think you just birthed the next BRT conversation on culture change, right? I think that this has come up in a lot of conversations around inclusive economies as well as gender equality, right? That we can push out policy, but it's implementation in our culture that we need to highlight. So thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your thoughts on this one. Again, as I mentioned, I'm closing out the equality category. But before I do, I just wanted to quickly check in with Anna, Melay. Any thoughts you wanted to add into what Kim mentioned?
I think Kim, that's really great. I just wanted to also add that while we have policies in place, please remember that we are responsible for our own homes and the small people that we raise. I know many people here are mothers or future mothers as well, or you're gonna be exposed to young children. So please, when you do that, stop the stereotype and start raising them well, to be open to their capabilities in a way, not just because of their gender, because a lot of it starts at a very young age. Napapasa minsan paglaking lola pa, sorry lola. Pero madaming ganyan nangyayari.
Very good. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much. That is the biggest way actually that I think we can change the culture, right? Melay, any thoughts that you wanted to add?
No, not at this point. I think those were excellent points.
Great. Thank you so much. So we are done with our first category. I am now going to go into inside. So a lot of the questions that we got actually for this BRT really, is about equality in the workplace. And I love that we are going to start this category with, to your point, Kim, the only other male in our panel discussion today, which is Michael. Michael, you have two questions actually that fall under this category. Could you please ask them together so that our panelists can answer it? Go ahead, Michael.
All right. So good morning, team. So my question is that how do we define if an organization is diverse or promotes equal opportunities? So that's my first question.
Go ahead, Michael. You can ask your second question.
All right.
Actually, so that
For the second question, since we already define it, so what is there any systematic ways or best practices that we can incorporate or execute in cascading the position of the company? I mean, cascading internally and externally the position of the company when it comes to promoting inclusiveness and diversity. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for your question, Michael. I'd actually like to call on Anna first for this particular question. Anna, in your experience, please go ahead.
So, Michael, those are really great questions. The first one to do is actually look at your roster of individuals and employees. It's the most basic thing that will come to mind. And actually, you just list down all of the genders that you actually have and then tally them. If hindi siya equal, then you'll have to add more people to that particular gender, I believe. But it could be as simple as that based on your company's DE&I policies that you'd want to be able to achieve and your goals. But there has to be some sort of like a metric. Like what we want in DDB has always been about balance. Diba? So apart from measuring gender across all our people, there has to be some balance when it comes to yung pay scale. Are we paying men more? Are we paying women more? Is there a particular thing that we want to do? And that always has to be some sort of balance, and that's how we see it there. In terms of diversity, it comes, we benefit from diversity. Because ideas can come from everywhere. And if we limit ourselves with one pocket of individuals, we tend up having this group thing, and it doesn't benefit our clients or our campaigns. So there really has to be some variety there. Again, because it benefits our business. Diba? There's a strategy behind it. Because and you have to also establish those in your company. Will it really benefit you to have diverse people? I think it will, because you're getting out of groupthink, more innovation comes in, your pool of people to get from gets wider and wider. So it's really, really interesting to have that kind of opportunity also for you, your workplace. Pero you measure first, and then you figure out ano ba talaga yung important sa boss ko. I mean, of course, you're a business, so there's a bottom line there. Ours has always been about balance, and having great ideas come from everywhere. So if we don't limit ourselves to like certain kind of people, only from this university, only from this ganito, imagine how boring our ads will become. So
I absolutely love that, Anna. Thank you so much for sharing. I wanted to quickly check in also with Kim. Kim, I mean, from Michael's question on the external part, I mean, you do have some visibility on, you know, the industry as well as companies across the Philippines. Any thoughts on cascading these policies or programs externally?
Thanks, Bea. I'll actually just draw on what Anna and Bella, and actually you have said previously that when we talk about workplace gender equality, it's really important to have commitment from leadership as well. And it's important for the company to articulate, you know, that commitment as well in terms of a strategy. Like, is there a gender equality strategy? And then operationalize that into actual policies, processes, you know, programs. And then, as what Anna said earlier, are you measuring, right? Are you checking in with your employees on how on their perceptions of gender equality and diversity in your workforce? Are you setting targets for yourself, right? And then, are you growing as an organization in terms of your understanding of workplace gender equality and diversity and how best to implement that and achieve that within your communication? If you have all of that, the communications of it and the transparency of it will come easily to the company. And the company is also more accountable to its stakeholders, right? To their consumers, to the public that they serve, when they communicate their commitment to gender equality. So I mean, I think that's it. You know, it's not about, we can't start with just external. You need to start, you know, from within and really change, you know, the organizational structure and culture.
Kim, Equality Inside Out. It actually is really our title for today, right? Thank you so much, Kim and Anna. Actually, we have a question from Regina under this particular bucket. Hi, Regina. That I feel Melai would be the best person to talk through it. So, Regina, do you want to ask your question under our equality in the workplace bucket?
Yes. So for new employees in an organization, how can they, spot or identify the gender diversity inclusion culture of the workplace? So I think it's quite similar to what Michael mentioned, but maybe like very concrete examples or tips on how new employees are able to do that.
Thank you so much, Regina. Melai, go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking forward to answer this question. So I'll tell you about my first day at Google. So my onboarding was done in Singapore, and we were handed out name tags during our first day of orientation. And then in the name tags, we were asked for our names as well as our pronouns. And I thought that was really, that was quite special because I didn't get to encounter a lot of that in different scenarios and in different settings, right? So right on my very first day in orientation, even before it has started, I already felt like, okay, people ask for pronouns here. I think they must be serious about their commitments to DEI. And then obviously during the orientation itself, there was also content that was dedicated to Google's values, which also touched on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And so, yeah, you would see right away if people are taking their commitment seriously. And there's a lot of other events in my life, in my 3-year life at Google so far, where I realized I was really lucky to be part of this organization. I'll tell you about one more incident. So I don't know if you remember this, but this would have been maybe 3 years ago now. So there was this incident, I think at Farmers, where there was this trans woman who was trying to get into the restroom in, I think that was Farmers. So that became such a huge scandal in social media. I think Gretchen Diaz was her name. She was basically forbidden from entering the women's restroom in the mall. So I was in the office the day after, and then our admin guy in the office approached me and said, Mela, I just want to ask you about your restroom experience here in the office. I just want to make sure that you never encountered any issues. And I thought that was really, really thoughtful of him. And he even he even accompanied me to the restroom and consulted with me on how we can make that a better experience for any other trans women who might join the company in the future. Like, if there's anyone that's not very comfortable sharing that common space in the restroom, what can we have available inside the cubicles so that if someone is not very comfortable in the on the sink there, they still have all their supplies and their requirements inside the cubicle. So I thought that was really thoughtful of them, and just really demonstrated to me that, okay, this organization really is serious about their DEI commitments. And there's a lot of other things. For example, having an employee resource group where women can talk to each other about their concerns, about promoting their own growth within the organization. If women are encouraged to do that, I think that would always be a good thing. Yeah, I think you would know.
Thank you so much, Melay. That's just such a heartwarming
It is.
anecdote and personal experience. I think that we all stand to learn actually from all of these, thoughtful little things that actually really make a big difference, right? Because it will then turn into policy and programs that really do uplift the DEI overall agenda. Thank you so much, Melay. And Regina, thanks for asking your question. I want to now shift, actually, we're still under inside, but to focus more on team composition. So there were a couple of questions actually on team composition that some of our participants have asked. And I would like to call on two members of the participants who asked a question on team composition. I'd like to call on Joyce first. Joyce, if you could ask your question to our panelists.
Hi. So my question under that is about, actually, since I'm coming from the creative industry, it's all about promoting now, through communications, maybe if it's in a company setting, through a communication plan, within the company, promoting gender equality, and as coming from an agency, through the creative campaign. So in creating those communications and promotions plans for promoting gender equality, does team composition matter for the task force who does that? Or is there a certain mindset setting that the team needs to have for them to create a very successful promotional campaign of gender equality?
Okay, thank you so much, Joyce, for that fantastic question. To our speakers, I want you to have a think, because I'm going to bring in Eileen. She has a similar question in team composition. So I want you to answer the question knowing the two questions of our panelists. Eileen, do you want to share your question on team composition?
Sure. So it's actually, Anna mentioned something about culture in the company. And my question is whether the gender equality in teams is actually an extension of gender equality or inequality from, from the organization as a whole, because it does, the behaviors do come from the leadership. And if so, what other steps can be taken to bring more balance?
Great. Very interesting questions on team composition. Anna, this is your story, Anna. Go ahead.
Thanks, Bea. Really, really good question, Joyce. So in DDB, we actually have biases, unconscious biases training with for our leaders, so that they're trained and they know already of the stereotypes that they face. And when it comes to actually putting efforts when it comes to communication, we've done a lot of efforts on this part. We've done macho choir, which was predominantly all male team. Can you imagine? It was about against catcalling, which there was a bill that we wanted to pass against safe spaces. This is in partnership with a Philippine Commission on Women's, and it was all male team because they were saying it's such a childish act. Diba? So they came up with the campaign because they saw their from experience women that they know personally who are feeling unsafe. And so yun, that's one campaign that we did, and it actually was very successful, and the bill did pass. So in 2018, so we're quite happy about that, and it actually made men aware na that kind of behavior is very, very juvenile. Opportunities like this and ideas like this can come from our leaders saying, just bring it out there. What can you do today that makes other people's lives better? One thing lang. One thing lang, whether it's smiling more, whether it be being kind or saying a nice thing to another person. Really doesn't have to be a big deal. Another one was screw AIDS. So Philippines has one of the highest number of HIV positive, and a lot of our university and college people who are becoming more sexually active are not even testing themselves. So we had to partner with Rotary Makati West, who was given a grant, and with Red Whistle, and we went to a caravan of campaigns in the University of Makati and in Taguig, and we were able to actually convince these children and teachers to remove the stigma in HIV testing, because it's a curable thing, and the medicines are free. So why are you not doing it? Because there's a stigma na namamatay na lang sila kasi ayaw nila malaman na HIV positive sila. Mali yun, di ba? Dapat mabuhay ka. So we had to, and then we say, screw AIDS, not the person who's HIV positive, right? So we have to remove that stigma. And we had so much fun creating that. And that was a diverse team of people doing that. So to answer your question, Joyce, it's a mindset. People who feel passionately about these things, doon mo i-harness yung doon ka maggagawa ng team. Hindi mo pipilitin kasi mahirap gumawa ng team na wala talaga silang passion for it. So it's really a mindset. There's a brief, it's open to all who would want to be part of it, and then they volunteer, and then they own it, and that counts for accountability to seeing it through. So that's what happens with us. It's very organic.
Beautiful, Anna. Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing with us the case studies as well. So Joyce, mindset to make this happen. And Anna, you mentioned something that is really true for our industry, passion, right? We all have our own passion. So bringing everybody together. Absolutely love that. I'm going to go now into hiring. So, Joyce and Eileen already talked about team composition. Marami tayong questions on hiring. I'd like to call on Attorney Dicky, actually, of Unilab, to start off the conversation on hiring with your question. Attorney Dicky, your question, please, on hiring.
Yes, thank you, Bea. So for my question on hiring, is there a study or findings whether companies work to develop genuine representation in the creative workplaces, as opposed to just hiring one or a few members to comply with the concept of gender equality?
Beautiful question. Kim, you're on the bat for this one, my friend. From a study perspective, please go ahead.
So whenever the question says study, Bea will throw the question to me. I'm not familiar with any study that really talks about are companies hiring for meaningful diversity, for transformative gender equality, or are they tokenistic about approaching gender equality? And I think that's because, as I mentioned earlier, we're not even measuring if there is real gender equality across our companies. And that's, I think, the real challenge for a lot of organizations. we worked with the People Management Association of the Philippines, for example, a few years back, and one of their action points coming from the research that they've done with us is we need to really start measuring. Just going back to the point raised earlier as well, right? We need to measure how we're really doing in terms of gender equality. If we say we have policies on gender equality, how are people accessing the policies, or how are people accessing the benefits? So I'm not familiar, but I would say that organizations who are really committed to gender equality will not approach it tokenistically, right? Because also, if you hire, for example, to fill, like to get a token woman or a token LGBTQI person in your team, you're also discriminating against other genders, right? When you advertise for that role. So it's really about hiring based on the needs of your company, but making sure that when you open that position up and you advertise for the role, for example, the opportunity is available for everyone, but also that everyone is encouraged, to actually apply for the role. So an interesting point, and I'm glad Regina from Education is here, because they have a toolkit on gender equal communication, right? And what they're doing is supporting companies also advertise for roles, because sometimes the way you even publish a job posting will impact, whether women will apply for it or whether LGBTQI folk will apply for it, right? So I think it's also important to not just think about, the skills, but also how we communicate the needs for the role.
Absolutely. Kim, you know what? I have a follow-up question that might actually be for Melay and Anna. Vanessa, I'm looking at your question now, and it seems like the perfect question to ask as a follow-up on hiring. Vanessa, you want to go share your question on hiring?
Hi, sure. But I think it was somewhat answered already, but I'll go right ahead. When hiring for a position to fill in the team, so we mentioned that we count, no? Some organizations actually count the genders. So is there a conscious effort in the organization to hire for a gender to meet a certain equal count of the pie? But in doing so, does it create more bias, ironically, right? In terms of hiring the right person, whatever their preferences are. So that's a little bit of not a confusing point, but
a question.
Yeah, it's as an irony in my head.
Okay.
I'd like to hear your thoughts, on that.
Thanks, Vanessa. Actually, that's why I wanted you to follow up with that question, because of the second part of your question. We just want to throw it out. And for this particular question, I want to ask Anna and Melay to chime in on this one. So Anna, why don't you go first?
So bottom line is, of course, you're hiring for another person that your team will have to live with 24/7. Your clients will have to work with, and so on. So what we do is though we have that gender in mind when it comes to like priority, because nga that's the number that's kulang in our roster. There's always that that you remember that you always hire for attitude, right? And then you train for skills. You don't forget that, because if you forget that, and then that person has poor behavior pero correct yung gender, yung tamad, ayaw naman magtrabaho, pero tama yung gender. Pero how will that benefit us also and other people around that? Why would you want to suffer your members to that you, or your employees that you love already? So there's also naman that there's common sense involved here. So you always make sure that you hire for attitude, and then you train up for skills.
Beautiful.
So,
beautifully said, Anna. That really rings true for me. Melody, do you want to chime in on this one coming from your own experience?
Just something to think about, I think, is what I want to throw out there. I think we also need to acknowledge, and I think this has come out in studies, na yung mga lalaki um, are more comfortable with applying for job positions kahit na hindi nila na-fulfill lahat ng minimum requirements as compared to women. Yung women mas takot mag-apply for jobs if they feel like, ay, wala ako nito. I do not have this years of experience. I do not have these skills, ganyan. But for men, apply lang sila ng apply. So I think there has to be a conscious effort also from our organizations to reach out to women because we know na hesitant na yan, hindi pa nagsa-start. So there has to be, that conscious effort. I think that's what I wanted to add lang.
Beautiful, Mela. You're giving us homework because that's a lot to think about. And in fact, I think it's perfect. Lynn, I'm going to call you on the virtual stage because we have two fantastic questions that ride on what Mela just mentioned too. So would you like to share with everybody your question, Lynn?
Thank you, Bea. Actually, my questions are somewhat similar to what Vanessa has asked earlier and partly already been answered by Kim and Melai and Anna. But anyway, so here goes. I just wanted to ask again, from your experience in your organizations, how do you think can you and your people, your team, make a conscious effort to hire, and not just to hire, not because many you've already given insights on hiring, but what about developing and promoting women and or LGBTQ plus people in your organization? And then I also should I
yes,
yeah, all right. And then the second question is, what benefits do you offer women to make their value resonate more and be appreciated more in your organization? In addition to what we already have, so where we all know that there's a Magna Carta for Women, Safe Spaces Act. So, but would there be other distinct benefits that you offer to the women community in your organization?
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you so much. And you're right, some of your questions were already answered. But what I wanted to focus on actually was on the promotions, right? The promotions and training up not only women, but LGBTQ plus members as well. So actually this question can be thrown to both Anna and Melai as well on your experience. So maybe Anna, you'd like to go first on the promotions part.
So what we actually have in DDB is that we have talent has no gender. So you are we actually provide everyone this opportunity of getting bonuses and whatnot based on their performance, not on their gender. So and it's also by teams accordingly. So parang everyone gets equal pot to this one. We also have like a thing that for my dad that kunyari, as long as your leaders are encouraging you, you can actually continue studying and getting more learning opportunities. That's also across all spectrum, regardless of gender. We've already parang passed the gender norms or whatnot. We're already looking at mental health and well-being, which we also provide support for our teams 24/7. We've partnered with My Nation, and they've also taken over of trainings for this particular now our biggest issues are the burnouts, and this is across all genders. So providing mental health and support for and like psychologists and therapists for our people is a plus. But it's really essential for them to be able to sustain being able to work and perform. So yeah, hindi siya gender, it's open for all.
But Anna, you raised an important point, right? That it really is for all because we treat everybody. Mel, I'm gonna use your term earlier. Your true, authentic, and most productive self. Those are the benefits that we need to give everybody. Is that they can come in to be their most authentic sorry, Mela, if I'm answering for you, but your true and most authentic self to be the best and productive person in the team, right? So
Yeah.
that is the benefit in promoting them.
Sustainable. Kasi hindi you know, creative work is not very physical, but it's highly emotional and mental, and it can be very, very exhausting. Um, Eileen, who I know is a strat planner, is like probably one of the hardest tasks in this job, and it's really, really draining. On top of all her work, na as a mom, you know, and she's a young child. So I can already imagine that the pressure that she has to go through. So what we have to do is actually support that through the programs that we have. So having that partner in my nation, because honestly we cannot do it alone, and I'm not a psychologist or not a therapist. So where we you know we find partners for it, and it's offered to all.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. Melay, do you want to bring in your thoughts on this one as well?
Yeah, dun sa promotion, I just wanna bring up that we also need to acknowledge na with women kasi there already are biases against women. Even before you go up for promotion, there are already stereotypes that are treated as, you know, parang naging barriers for women. Masyadong emotional, um, masyadong sensitive, ganyan. And so it becomes important na there is that conscious effort really to reach out. And I think that would be key dun sa question ni, I think that was Lynn. It has to be conscious effort talaga. You need to reach out to the women because you know na meron ng stereotypes and biases against them. So what can you do so that you can strengthen yung loob ng mga babae para mag-apply for promotions? You want to do mentorships with them. You want to do executive sponsorships with these women so that you're able to give them the tools and the confidence that they can do these things just as well as their male counterparts, right? So yeah, I think in terms of promotions, let's champion women in the workplace.
Absolutely love that. Kim, yes, Kim is like me. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I'll also just add to that, building on what Anna and Mela also said, and what's shared earlier by the other participants as well. That I think just introducing the concept of what do you call this? Indirect discrimination, right? Because direct discrimination is when you tell a person, no, we don't want you in the team because, or no, we don't want to promote you because of this or because of that. But indirect discrimination is when you have a blanket policy that indirectly or inadvertently disadvantages some members of the organization. So using the example of women and promotions, for example, we know that to get promoted, sometimes you need to do lots of training, you know, as Anna also pointed out, sometimes meetings outside of regular office hours, right? And we know that in the Philippines and in many other countries, globally really, women are expected to perform a lot of the caring work as well, in addition to their day jobs, right? So when you don't address intentionally, you know, the inequality of the opportunities for training or for attending meetings or networking, you know, you disadvantage women, right? So for example, by having training after office hours, right, you force women to add another ball to juggle, you know, in addition to the day job and the care work. Nadagdag mo pa yung training doon or yung networking opportunities after office hours. So those are some of the things I think we really need to think about. Na it's and that goes back also to gender blindness, right? Are we really thinking about the specific needs of some of the genders or other groups that tend to be marginalized in the organization?
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your thoughts on this one. Something for us to really think about, right? And be very conscious about it as well. In fact, I think that this is the perfect segue in changing up our questions on bringing in the men, right? And I'd like to call on Kat. Kat, hello. You have two questions from Bullish that I think are perfect for And Kim, I'd actually like you to answer it first, if you don't mind. Kat, can you ask your 2 questions, please?
Sure. So actually in Bullish, we're women-led and mostly women composed. So really very high in percentage. So just wanted to ask a practical question on this. So how do we get more men in the company? So the thing with our recruitment, we give naman, we post, etc. It's really just the number of women that get the resumes that we get from women and the resumes that get to the next level, all of these things. Really, it's just more geared towards women, not because we chose it. I guess it's just the way that it's been happening with the recruitment. So I guess the question that I have then is how do we, number one, attract more men to apply for our company, and how do we get more men in our workplace?
Thanks, Kat. Kim, why don't you start?
Thank you. I'm actually not the HR expert here, but I will just add my thoughts. No? So and I think it's really good for you to really explore, the reasons behind this problem, because and Anna, you can add to this. I feel that it might be, the fact that you're getting women mostly resumes are symptoms of a problem that only you can also, identify. So, and it might be good to look at it at every step. So for example, when you said earlier that when you advertise for jobs, you tend to get a lot of resumes from women applicants. Is there something in your job ad that you need to tweak as well to attract more men? And when you say that also more women tend to go to the next level, have a look at your panel or who's screening the applications, right? Is there also diversity in the team that's selecting the applications? And then even if you just think about the jobs, diba? Or how you talk about the jobs and the skills needed for the job, are there biases as well around the perceptions? Diba? So for example, do you sometimes even think or say that women will be good for these roles because they're multitaskers, or they're very good multitaskers, or they're very nifty with their hands, or I don't know, those are positive stereotypes, but they can also, again, have negative impacts on the organization and the diversity of the workforce. So again, those are non-HR expert thoughts, but
thanks,
Anna and Bella.
Thank you. Anna, do you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah. This really need to know also. Kat, maybe you should also look into asking your teams for the solution. Sometimes I say our biggest problems will be solved by the people in your room. So don't feel that you have to solve it by yourself. So what we do is we do surveys in DDB, a lot of surveys. A lot of surveys bago kami gumawa ng event, bago kami gumawa ng test, bago kami ng program. Pandami kaming surveys just to get everyone's input and ensure that they're comfortable or they want to be involved, para walang pilitan kasi walang basagan ng trip. So we have to make sure, Kat, that you involve also the team with, if you find this is already being a problem. So baka there's someone in your team that can actually provide a solution. And look at look at what Kim has mentioned about your ads first, or your particular languages there that may be appealing to women. Sometimes there's a lot of benefits na mention natin that can also be only appealing to women, but men don't even think about it, right? They don't even have to worry about those things. So look into your team also for help. Just, you don't have to do it on your own. Miss Melay?
Thanks, Anna. Melay, do you want to add anything?
No, I'm okay now.
Okay. All right. Actually, it goes back to everything we talked about with the first question, guys. It's everybody's ball game. I love what you said, Anna. We need to ask for help. We can all solution find together, I think, is really the point of this as well. Now, ladies and gents, it's already 9:17. I know, where did time go? I feel like I know, speakers. I was like, what? It's 9:17. So I do want to go and ask the questions on the out part, because we did want to check in, right, on how gender equality in teams manifests in the work we do. So I hope we can just go into our questions for that round. We have two questions under this section. I'd like to start with Attorney Dicky again. Attorney Dicky, you had an interesting question on the manifestation of GE in our work. Go ahead.
Yes. So are there findings regarding creative workplaces with consistent gender sensitive outputs and its correlation to these workplaces' internal personal policies on gender equality?
Thank you
Maybe it's
so
for
much.
Kim.
Thank you for telling me that it's for him. Yes, Kim, it's your ball game.
Thanks, Attorney Dicky. Thanks, Bea. Globally, there are studies linking diversity within teams, to diverse creative output as well. And I think that's logical. Just going back to Anna's point earlier, that when you have diversity in your team, you disrupt groupthink, diba? Sometimes when there are ridiculously stereotyped ads that you see, for example, in the market, the question you ask yourself is, paano lumusot to sa creative team? Wala bang nag-flag nito, di ba? Didn't anyone raise issues with this brief or the concept, right? So, and maybe not, because maybe they're people of the same, thinking, sitting in the room with no one disrupting again that group think, diba? So I think that gender diversity or diversity in teams in general will not automatically lead to more innovative, more diverse campaigns as well, but it creates an environment that's conducive for creativity, for innovation. Again, because you bring together different perspectives, different ideas, and you're able to interrogate each other's thinking, and able to disrupt some of the biases when you spot them.
Thank you so much, Kim. So again, global research. Melay, please go ahead.
So this is not specific to creative industries, and this is also not specific to gender equality in the workplace. But yes, there have been studies that have shown that diversity leads to more innovation. So I think I just want to quote this part from Harvard Business Review that I came across. This was from an article called "How Diversity Can Drive Innovation." Sabi dun sa article, inherently diverse contributors understand the unmet needs in underleveraged markets. So this one is quite marketing and sales inclined, but yeah, we get the idea. Na, when at least one member of a team has traits in common with the end user, the entire team better understands that user. And I think I just want to point out a specific example, maybe with a Google product. So with Google, in Google Pixel, which is our phone, there's this technology that they developed, which is the real tone. I think real tone technology of the cameras. So cameras in the past have not been tested in enough diverse groups of people. So there are biases in imaging and processing of photos in camera technology. So cameras historically were calibrated to white skin. And so what Google did, because we have a product equity group that really makes sure that our products can be used and enjoyed by as many users as we can and as many different users as we have. So they invited photographers to test out the cameras and then work with the engineers to test what worked well and what did not dun sa mga cameras to ultimately capture the nuances of all skin tones equally. Now, this kind of innovation or technology, this cannot come from, let's say, 5 white men, right? 5 white men na lahat ng galing sa mayayamang pamilya. You can't have that kind of mindset na, okay, kailangan nating isolve yung problem ng maiitim. Wala, hindi nila maisip yon. And so, it's really important that you have a diversity of backgrounds, a diversity of experiences, a diversity of personalities within your teams, kasi they represent specific portions of the different markets that you're after. And that's really the only way that you can innovate. And innovation can only come from an innovation of ideas, or a diversity of ideas, a diversity of personalities, diversity of backgrounds.
Absolutely. I love that, Mela. And thanks also, Kim. I mean, guys, this is really why we're here today. We need to disrupt groupthink, right? That will lead to creativity and innovation. In fact, I'd like to call on Joyce. Joyce, you can piggyback actually on this conversation with your questions. And I feel that Anna would be the best person to actually answer it from an agency perspective. Go ahead, Joyce.
Right. So my two questions is actually, first, how is now the PH market, like on the other side, currently reacting to gender sensitivity in campaigns? So how are now people, taking it in? And any updated local research established out there for this? So that's my first question. And the second one is, what set of conditioning questions then must teams ask themselves if the output is gender equality sensitive? So if you're in the brainstorm room.
Okay, Joyce, great question. Maybe we can actually tackle your second question first, coming from Anna, and then maybe Kim, you'd like to talk briefly on the local research. So Anna, your thoughts on the second question?
Yeah, so a year ago, I think there was a very very controversial ad that came out that parang nagtackle about body shaming, and we had to actually um talk about it in 4As seriously, as a board, and how do we continue to ensure that society is elevated, not when you come up with campaigns, you think about, is this going to shape culture or society for the better, or are we just doing this to poke fun at other people? There's this the very thin line of funny and very insensitive. Um, when you're in a room and you see people you've been working with for a long time, and they're all nodding and they all have the same goals as you do, maybe it's good to have an intern in there, right? Someone who has a different perspective of the and see how they react first before you end up launching a uh, million spending all that millions in an ad that actually hurt a lot of people. um so there, get others involved, Joyce. Just not I know it's easy kasi mas madali when you get everyone already agreeing, pero there's some security watch outs there that you have to know na parang, are we just being comfortable? Are we just being complacent? Are we just, you know, ask yourself. And if it's if there's something in you and you have to really trust your gut, and you have to stop and say, na, this is not gonna fly. I'm not gonna lang say na lang the what happened to that brand.
Thank you so much, Anna. Love what you shared on shaping culture. I think that was really my biggest takeaway on that one. Joyce, I'm sure you're taking so many notes about this, but Kim, you want to add some thoughts on that local research bit Joyce asked about?
Thanks, Vea. I'll also just add a bit on, the questions we need to be asking ourselves, because that's also coming out of the research that I'll be talking about later. But in terms of questions, I think it's good to even start from the brief. Like even when you get a brief from the client, you might want to push the envelope a bit sometimes and say, are there gendered assumptions here? So for example, detergent brand brief, sasabihin ni client na parang, okay, so we are going to target moms of a certain age, diba? Tapos these are let's identify the behaviors, their motivations, etc. Do we want to ask sometimes, parang, moms lang ba talaga ang naglalaba? Moms lang ba talaga ang are decision makers when it comes to detergents? Diba? Because that is a gendered assumption right there. Right? And sometimes that can dictate, the gender portrayal in the ads as well. right? So when you think of characters in the ads, it's good to ask, are we showing multidimensional characters? Because again, sometimes we're only showing women in caring roles, men in professional roles. Is that the reality that we're living in, and is that reflective of our lives? And I think it will challenge go with for the advertising industry sometimes is also to have a look at the landscape of portrayals of these roles, right? Because when it comes to stereotypes, it's not, for example, one ad that shows a woman in the kitchen, that's not very problematic, right? But if all the ads of a person cooking is of a woman wearing an apron, feeding the children, then that's when you should start asking questions. Parang, are we, again, to Anna's point, are we shaping culture a certain way here? Are we reinforcing the stereotype that when it comes to cooking, someone said in the chat earlier, pwede naman magluto ang mga lalaki, di ba? So bakit ganon palagi? So if there's too many women or too many men in a certain role, then should you challenge the client and your team to say, let's put another, gender there, right? But also think historically of the ads you've created for this client, for example. Palagi bang lalaki yung person nilalagay natin in a certain role or palagi bang babae? And then also ask yourself, is it time to shake things up for this next ad, right? And I'll use that to talk about the research of it. We actually worked with the University of the Philippines recently. Not very recently. 2019, we commissioned them to do research, and they analyzed 1,000 ads that ran in the Philippines. And what they saw was there's really good progress in terms of, the very glaring, stereotyping. So we're not seeing a lot of women in skimpy clothing, for example, anymore, or women who are sexualized. But in terms of the subtle stereotyping, it's still there. Again, they found that when women and men or other genders are portrayed in familial roles, for example, it's always the woman who's caring for the children, always the man earning the income for the family. And that really limits, the way even children create dreams for themselves, diba? Or think of themselves. I think, again, going back to the point on complacency, we've made really good progress, but let's keep pushing ourselves to really mold our society's values and into the reality that we want to live in, right? And going back to Anna's point, it's recognizing the industry's role of not only mirroring what we think is reality, but also shaping it a certain way.
Thank you so much, Kim. I know we are already out of time, ladies and gents, but I hope you can just stay for just an extra 5 minutes because I do want to wrap this up. Melay, before I do a quick wrap up, do you want to add anything on the questions that we need to ask? No? Okay, because I have a very difficult question for our 3 fabulous speakers, right? There was a question, and I hope you guys don't mind, but I'll ask your questions for you as a wrap up. There was a question here of how else can we push equality forward? And I'm going to bundle that up with what is the one thing I can do, me as a person, to push gender equality forward in my organization. So I know it's such a big ask, but Anna, Melay, and Kim, that's why we're here today. In one word, what can we do to push the gender equality agenda forward? And I'm going to try to wrap it up with your one-worders, right? So I'm going to go ahead with Melay, if you don't mind. What is the one word that you want to share to push gender equality forward?
I don't have one word. I'm so sorry. I'll just describe it.
Okay.
I think we really need to challenge our perceptions of what leadership should look like so that we see women as leaders as well. Napaka masculine ng mga traits and attributes that we associate with leadership, na parang women have to abandon all their feminine qualities just to be seen as leaders. And I don't think we should perpetuate that.
Fantastic. I love that. Love that. Kim.
I think, role, not one word, but role model. How can we role model for others as well, right? Particularly for men, right? In organizations, how can they champion women in the organization as well? I think that men have a role, for example, when they see, I've said this in, I think, another IMMAP event. When you see that it's mostly men in a room and that the woman's voice is not heard, pass the mic on to the woman in the room, to make sure that idea, that perspective is heard. But also, as a man, how are you and a male leader, for example, how are you role modeling for others in terms of your caring responsibility, again, to ease the burden on women, because that should be a shared burden, right? So if you're a male executive, a male manager, are you taking paternity leave, or are you always just letting your female partner, go to all the school activities and care for a sick child, so yeah. So I think, at the personal level, role modeling is really important.
Thank you, Kim. And Anna, of course.
I love that, Kim and Melek. Grabe. Thanks, Bea. Okay, I'll be pasaway also and not to follow that one word. First of all, you just have to really define what success means to you. Will that include others and in your vision when you become successor, or are you just going to be alone? Parang sad naman kung mag-isa ka lang, di ba? Parang success shouldn't just be defined with one person's ability to rise above. So if you are able to bring so many people with you, much better. I think that should be, so define success and what it means to you, and don't repeating what role modeling is. Be patient when it comes to educating others, because this might be normal for us, and thankfully this lovely room of people are more aware and enlightened. But for others, be patient, because it might be a new thing for them. So please, please, please continue to educate, especially the younger ones, because they deserve better.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melay, Kim, and Anna. It's okay that we're pasaway, because that's why we're here.
Exactly. That's why we're here.
Right? Exactly. That's why we're here pala. So actually, to sum it all up, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm going to share. You've heard from Mela, you've heard from Kim, you've heard from Anna. But really, if we bring it down to the metal and what we're doing here today, we need to challenge, because if we don't challenge it, who will? Right? And that's why we're starting these conversations here. We need to all have a conscious, continuous, and collective effort to push the gender equality agenda forward. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on for a class picture, because we made it to challenging the groupthink in today's discussion. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The key takeaway, our food for thought in today's session. We need a conscious, collective, and continuous effort of pushing the gender equality agenda in the workplace, or any workplace, any place rather, right? We should be pushing this agenda forward, because it just makes sense. It makes business sense, it makes life sense. And we are here to really push this out. A big shout out to our wonderful guests once again, Anna, Melay, and Kim. You are truly inspiring individuals, and I love that you can continue talking about it and really driving this agenda forward, and that we get to do it here at B2B. And of course, to our partners, IMMAP and Investing in Women, thank you so much for using also this platform to be able to really share the love, share the knowledge, and share the experiences, so that we can really make great changes in our workplaces, in our creative work, in our campaigns. And of course, thank you also to our partner, McDonald's. See you again soon in B2B Breakfast to Business. Remember that here we talk shop, we talk life, we talk advocacy, and we talk real. See you soon. Ciao. That's it for today's episode of B2B Breakfast to Business with your morning girl, Bea Lim. Please don't forget to tune in to Team Asia's social media accounts to keep yourself updated on these breakfast happenings. Remember to stay safe. See you again soon here at B2B Breakfast to Business. Thank you. Ciao.
Breakfast to